Hey there, folks. We're back again today to talk through the progress that we've made in our group found as Toxic Rain Ballista Pathfinder. Overall, the past few days have been going pretty well, all things considered. Obviously, Easter Sunday, the holiday, and then getting back into the work week. Things have been a little slow going, but overall, I have absolutely no complaints with the progress that we've made. Um, we are level 93, so doing pretty fine from the XP perspective. I actually haven't checked deaths 27 times. That's pretty okay, I think. I would say a good 10 to 15 of those were me dying in the act, attempting to do crucibles. I have really not died a whole lot leading up um, to sort of the late 90s or late 80s, early 90s. Really, it's once again just going to be crucible mobs that come out of nowhere. I died a few times in a way too juiced expedition as well too, but overall, characters felt pretty good given the fact that we don't have a ton of evasion or armor. And petrified blood is really the main thing that's kind of carrying us through our defenses, along with the divine life flask. The character definitely feels much better than I thought it would. I was most definitely worried when starting out that it was just going to feel very questionable or very paper thin, but it definitely exceeded my expectations in sort of how it plays. From a gearing perspective, we've made a decent number of upgrades since the last video. The biggest one, namely, being our 6-link short bow. So this is, of course, from our porcupine set. We did this by farming out, doing the, I guess, ping pong strategy, if you will, between orchard and courtyard. So our, at the time, tier 4 and 5 maps here, those were the only ones that we completed. And so we were able to consistently get drops of mostly just orchards and then courtyards and run through them. As a general gut, if you are going to go through and farm these porcupine cards, Emperor's Luck, which is a diff card that also drops on the orchard and courtyard maps, it's roughly 20 to 1 rarity. And so I would expect you to have an upwards of, somewhere between 100 and 140 Emperor's Luck cards if you were to, save them all up by the time you get the Porcupine set. That generally mathed out for me as well. I ended up with 109 Emperor's Luck cards while farming through the whole set. So my, baseline was slightly lucky, but just sort of generally on average there per card, which was pretty cool to see. But as we can see here, I did do the sort of typical chaos skill plus gem level craft. So that is using essences of dread. I will say it correctly this time. So shrieking essences of dread, which give +2 to bow gems, spamming that on. And by the time I was making the craft, I only had a few of them. So I did settle with this with projectile speed. Technically, the better case scenario for this bow is spamming the +2 to bow gems until you hit an open prefix, an open suffix, and one of your other 2 suffixes being attack speed. That would be the best case scenario, but this is, still perfectly acceptable for current state. And then once you get the +2 with the open prefix and open suffix, you can craft cannot roll attack mods as your suffix. Slam an exalted orb on there to add a modifier. That modifier will be a prefix, and it is guaranteed to be this +1 socketed gems. And then you can craft on whatever you want on the suffix. For me, that was attack speed. If you already had attack speed on your bow, you could definitely just craft chaos damage over time multiplier, which would be the next best option. The links that we are running are, of course, Toxic Rain, Ballista Totem, Vicious Proj, Void Manip, Increased Duration, which, now that I see this, I should probably quality that, and Efficacy. Increased Duration is kind of just a holdover spot. This is a bit of a more flexible option. This would be your sixth link in this case. Best case scenario, this would be an Empower. Given the fact that there is two of us in this league, we have not yet dropped an Empower. Until you fix mana, or if you just want to run a mana flask, this increased duration could also be a life tap. I decided to just go for a mana flask throughout most of my leveling time, just because the mana flask effects was useful, and also I really enjoyed doing a mana forged arrow setup. So speaking of, for other setups, we have mana forged arrows with GMP and Frenzy. This effectively just means that Frenzy will be all the way up, and I will have my max 4 Frenzy charges all the time. I have a 5-link setup with Ensnaring Arrow, with just some odds and ends things. Withering Touch isn't super necessary. As we can see, it's level 16. I kind of just added it in. With our new Withered Ascendancy, it's not likely that it's needed, but it's a little bit more consistent if I'm going to be running around a lot. It's nice to just have more chances to get Withered stacked up. Otherwise, we have an Immortal Call set up here. I'm just leveling an Impending Doom. Don't worry about that. We got our Petrified Blood, and we have our Self-Cast Despair, our Malevolence and Haste auras that we're running, and our Withering Step. Otherwise, gear is pretty okay. It's pretty much just a big dump of life, res, and attributes. I'm way over on attributes, as we can see here, mostly because I have this amulet that is just a lot. I've yet to drop Wilma's. Sad, I can cry about it later, but ultimately that is a-okay. It does mean that we can have some much easier spell suppression capping, like we have with these items. By far, the worst item that I have right here is this belt. This belt is an absolute stinker, but given that it is high level 73, I wanted to wait to craft a better belt for once I get a higher level base, and the fact that it has life and a T2 flask charges gained was good enough for me. I'm not hurting for any of these stats, so it is fine. Overall, character has been performing well. I'll have the full versions of my Searing Exarch and Quest Eater of World kills at the end of this video. Very smooth. Overall, I have absolutely no complaints from a League starter perspective. It is worth noting that if you do not generally like the totem playstyle, this is a very totemy playstyle. Ballistas in general are super glass cannon in a lot of cases. For those that don't know, ballistas, or just in general, totem skills, or like spell totem or things that turn things into totem, gets additional totem life based on the gem level. And so early gem levels of ballista totems specifically just disappear. And so it is very important to both get gem levels on your totem support. So like here, being a level 23, being a level 24 would be even better. And then getting this Panopticon wheel here, it is much more important than I think a lot of people give it credit for, because boy, do your totems just disappear in maps if you don't have that. While I've got the passive tree up, nothing particularly crazy we've got going on. Been doing a little bit of delirium, so I got a couple of clusters that are decent. I just mostly rolled this 8 passive chaos damage cluster for Unholy Grace, because that is by far the best notable for it. I will eventually roll it better, but right now, life and chaos is perfectly acceptable. And then we have a 2 passive mana reservation here for haste that lets me just eke in my 3 auras. This needs to be either haste or malevolence. Either one will work. Malevolence is technically a bit better because it innately comes with chaos resistance, whereas debuffs expire on you is kind of whatever. But overall, character is very solid. I am definitely itching to play something a little bit faster, something with some explosions. Maybe sounds enjoyable. What I tend to do in restricted leagues, so either SSF or group found type leagues, is I will have a tab where I will put all of my interesting or enticing items in. And that would happen to be this tab right here. And so, as we can see, spoiler alert for my Eater of Worlds kill, I did drop an Ashes off of the Quest Eater. Also, Gwennon gave me a Covenant, and I was able to 6-link it in about 200 fusings. So this is currently everything that I'm sitting on. Not exactly sure what I'm going to play with it yet, but I'll figure out something, or I'll just re-roll 4 builds and then cry about it to my friends. Either way, it will be a fun time. So if you have any questions about the build or about group found or SSF type things in general, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, have a great day.
Okay, we'll get an Omni and an Ashes here, surely. Or a matching Forbidden Flesh and Flame.
Your absurd defiance ends here, hatchling.
The Atlas must remain mine.
Incineration.
My mana is gone.
The fires of 1,000 suns.
Okay.
You do not have the strength, hatchling.
That may be, but I
Ouch.
am not alone.
How pathetic.
I can't see Marbin.
Annihilation. Incineration. Disintegration.
Nice. I was able to one-phase it. Okay.
Energize the spheres.
Oh! Yeah! Yum, 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 yum.